Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're putting on our investigative historian hats to dive into one of history's absolute greatest cold cases. We're going to uncover how a vast, ancient utopia seemingly just vanished into thin air. We've got an incredible look at this today, drawing directly from modern archaeological findings, climate science, and some really fascinating genetic research. So let's dive right in.
I mean, just think about it for a second. How does an entire civilization of millions of people simply vanish without a trace? It is the central puzzle that has completely baffled archaeologists for over a century now. Because, we aren't talking about some small, isolated tribe here. We're talking about a Bronze Age superpower, a society that rivaled and, honestly, in many ways exceeded its famous contemporaries in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. Yet, for thousands of years, they were literally forgotten by history, buried beneath the dust of the Indian subcontinent, until the 1920s.
What we're left with today are these desolate, incredibly mysterious ruins of cities like Lothal, which was once this bustling ancient maritime port filled with merchants trading carnelian beads and bronze goods. To put the sheer scale of this into perspective, between 2600 and 1900 BCE, the Indus Valley or Harappan civilization was absolutely massive. It spanned an astonishing 1.3 million square kilometers, stretching all the way from the Himalayan foothills right down to the Arabian Sea. But today, all we have are these silent, intricate ruins. No grand monuments to boastful kings, no battlegrounds littered with weapons, just the quiet remains of insanely advanced cities. And to truly grasp the tragedy of their disappearance, we kind of have to understand exactly what was lost.
Section 1. Marvels of Harappan Engineering, Building the Ancient Utopia.
Harappan cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Dholavira feel, frankly, astonishingly modern. Built on this meticulous grid pattern, their main streets intersected at perfect right angles. This was the hub of a highly organized society that even used perfectly standardized weights and measures in their daily commerce. If you lived in one of these cities, you likely had a multi-room courtyard house and, remarkably, your very own private bath. I mean, centuries before the Romans, the Harappans engineered these sophisticated underground covered drainage systems. Everything was built with standardized baked bricks, and they had these complex water conservation structures to manage their environment. They heavily prioritized public health, hygiene, and sustainability. It was, by all accounts of the ancient world, a true urban utopia.
And when we compare the Indus Valley Civilization to places like Egypt and Mesopotamia, the contrasts are staggering. While pharaohs and Mesopotamian kings were busy constructing giant ziggurats, building massive pyramids, and basically boasting of their bloody conquests, no obvious kings or palaces have been found in the Indus Valley. None. The Harappans instead focused their wealth on public baths and civic infrastructure. Furthermore, there is very limited evidence of weapons or warfare in the Indus sites. They seem to function flawlessly through a highly organized, well, actually more of an egalitarian civic system, rather than through top-down totalitarian rule. It's a remarkable, peaceful anomaly in human history. But of course, because there are no kings boasting on stone tablets, figuring out who these people actually were is incredibly difficult.
Section 2. The Undeciphered Indus Script, a language lost to time.
Okay, so we do know they traded heavily with their neighbors. In fact, ancient Sumerian cuneiform records talk about a super prosperous trading partner they called Meluha, which historians are heavily convinced refers to the Indus Valley people. But their Harappans' own script, the thousands of intricate little symbols they stamped onto their trade seals, it remains completely undeciphered. Seriously, it hasn't even been definitively proven to be a spoken writing system. And because we can't read their words, their true voice is totally lost to time.
So without a Rosetta Stone to crack the code, linguists are essentially forced to work backwards here, which has led to a few really compelling hypotheses. The widely supported Proto-Dravidian theory suggests the script belongs to the Dravidian family, which is spoken heavily in southern India today. This is actually backed by certain root words, like the word for tooth, and by genetic migration patterns. On the flip side, you have the Paramunda theory, which suggests that the northern Punjab region of the civilization might have spoken a different language entirely. What this essentially tells us is that, much like modern South Asia or ancient Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley wasn't just a monolith. It was likely a rich, diverse, and multilingual society. So if they were this diverse and this advanced, what exactly happened to them?
Section 3. Tracing Harappan Genetic Roots, Debunking the Invasion Myth.
Now, for a really long time, the dominant explanation for the civilization's end was the Aryan invasion theory. This was a 19th century concept that proposed fair-skinned Indo-Aryans violently invaded from the north, wiped out the native Indus cities, and basically drove the survivors south. But modern science, it tells a completely different story. Recent mitochondrial DNA analysis and genetic markers entirely disprove the idea of a sudden, violent conquest. Instead of an invasion, the genetic fabric shows complex, gradual migrations and a very slow historical gene flow. There is a deep, intrinsic maternal continuity in the region. Long story short, the civilization didn't fall to a sword. So, if it wasn't a war, what brought this Bronze Age utopia down?
Section 4. Solving the Great Collapse. The Climatic Smoking Gun.
The answer to their collapse actually seems to lie in a single devastating number, 113. According to some breakthrough climate simulations recently published in Communications, Earth, and Environment, scientists have identified a singular, crippling drought that hit the Indus Valley region, and it didn't last for a season. It didn't last for a decade. It lasted for 113 years. Imagine the immense, unimaginable strain on a society completely dependent on agriculture and river systems when the rains fail for literally more than a century.
Scientists are now referring to this period as the Harappan metamorphosis. This grand 113-year drought occurred between 3531 and 3418 years ago. But the absolute crucial takeaway here is that they did not collapse abruptly from a single Hollywood-style catastrophic event. It wasn't an overnight apocalypse. Repeated century-long droughts severely strained their incredibly engineered water systems. The mighty rivers they relied on, like the legendary Ghaggar Hakra, began to shift and dry up entirely. What followed was a forced, gradual, and really uneven deurbanization. The people didn't just vanish into thin air. They slowly migrated. They had to abandon their bustling, grid-planned megacities for smaller, more sustainable settlements in the Himalayan foothills and the Ganges Plain. It was a slow, painful metamorphosis forced by brutal environmental pressures. But even though their cities were abandoned to the sand, their legacy is actually very much alive today.
Section 5. Legacy of the Indus. Connecting ancient to modern.
Let's trace the incredible timeline of Lothal, which is one of the most vital ancient sites we discussed earlier. Around 2400 BCE, it was this bustling maritime port, boasting the world's oldest known artificial dock. Fast forward to the mid-20th century. Between 1955 and 1960, the Archaeological Survey of India conducted major excavations to unearth its secrets. And now, the site is undergoing an absolutely massive modern revival. In March 2019, the foundation was laid for a giant new complex, with Phase 1A expected to be completed in 2025.
We can actually see this transformation taking place right now. You have the original ancient brick foundations of Lothal, standing there as this profound testament to early mastery of trade and engineering, and right alongside them, a stunning modern rendering reveals the future, the new National Maritime Heritage Complex. This state-of-the-art facility is a hugely ambitious project designed to celebrate India's 4,500-year maritime legacy. It's set up to allow visitors to actually step into the shoes of ancient mariners, featuring life-size recreations of Lothal's architecture. And not only is it preserving history, but this massive complex is projected to create over 22,000 direct and indirect jobs. It's revitalizing the local economy in the exact same geographical space where ancient Harappans once traded their beads and bronze.
As we look at these incredible ruins and the massive efforts to preserve them, I want to leave you with a final, kind of provocative thought. Are our modern cities actually prepared to face the exact same climate and water pressures that ultimately reshaped the Harappans? I mean, they had some of the most advanced water conservation and drainage systems the ancient world had ever seen, yet a changing climate and shifting rivers forced them to abandon their utopia. As we face our own modern climate challenges, the cold case of the Indus Valley Civilization serves as a chilling, yet super vital, historical lesson on sustainability and survival.
If you're as fascinated by this ancient mystery as I am, I highly encourage you to dig a little deeper. We've provided 10 fantastic, incredibly reliable sources that we use to build today's explainer, ranging from the latest climate science reports in Communications, Earth, and Environment to some really comprehensive archaeological texts. Go ahead and take a screenshot, dive into the research, and keep exploring. Thank you so much for joining me today, and as always, keep learning.